The boat market just hit a turning point, and the fallout is exposing a brutal truth. American boats and Japanese boats aren't even playing the same game anymore. Prices are slipping on one side, staying rock solid on the other, and buyers are getting blindsided. What's causing it? Labor costs, production volume, freight bills, even currency swings. These invisible forces are hitting American-built boats hard, while Japanese models seem almost immune. But here's where it gets worse. The next 30 days will widen this gap even more, and most buyers won't realize what's happening until after they overpay. If you want to avoid the biggest ownership trap of the season, pay attention. Here's what the numbers are finally revealing. Cost foundations. When you line up an American-built boat beside a Japanese-built one, the difference in starting price is not magic or mystery. It begins with the cost of the hands that build them, the buildings they are built in, and the miles they must travel before they ever meet a customer. Labor cost alone creates a split that shows up on the price sheet. In the United States, hourly wages for skilled marine assembly can run high enough that every step on the production line adds a meaningful amount to the final sticker. In Japan, wages remain respectful, but structured within a narrower band, allowing factories to keep payroll predictable and controlled. That alone does not determine price, but it sets the stage for everything that follows. Facility cost forms the second branch of the divide. American plants often sit on sprawling land with larger overhead, from insurance to utility consumption, and those expenses feed directly into MSRP. Japanese factories tend to occupy tighter footprints, built around efficiency-first layouts that use less square footage and fewer resources. The final pressure point is freight. A boat built in one country and sold in another must ride a container, a flat rack, or a roll-on vessel, and those transport bills climb fast. Every mile crossed becomes another cost loaded onto the sale price. And once those basic costs are locked in, the size of the boat market pushes the price gap even wider. Market size economics. In the United States, the popularity of larger boats drives a different set of costs long before a dealer ever prints a window sticker. Widespread demand for roomy layouts and bigger hulls forces manufacturers to build boats with more fiberglass, more structural reinforcement, and more hardware. Each extra foot of hull translates into more material expense, and those materials are not cheap. Resin pricing, composite cores, stringer systems, deck molds, and hardware all scale upward as customers lean toward size. The result is simple. The boats cost more to make, so they cost more to buy. Transport compounds the problem. Larger American-style hulls require wider trailers, escort vehicles in certain regions, and specialized loading at distribution centers. Every extra inch introduces more logistical complexity, and carriers charge accordingly. Those transport fees are not eaten by the factory. They are passed directly into the final selling price. That means the consumer pays for the physical footprint of the boat twice. Once in materials and once in movement. The structure of the American market reinforces this cycle. When most of the customer base gravitates towards size, manufacturers keep scaling production to match expectations, locking in a cost structure that is hard to reverse. That is why even mid-range models carry surprising base prices compared to boats built in places where customers prioritize compact efficiency. But even when the hull size stays the same, the exchange rate can shift the price overnight. If you're following how these price gaps form, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next update. And leave your take below, because real ownership stories help expose the patterns dealers hope stay hidden. Currency mechanics. A boat crossing the Pacific does not just move across water, it moves across currency. The exchange rate between the United States dollar and the Japanese yen quietly reshapes marine pricing without most buyers even realizing it is happening. When the dollar strengthens against the yen, imported boats become more affordable on paper because each converted yen costs fewer dollars at the factory level. This effect can shave meaningful amounts off the wholesale invoice, and those savings sometimes filter into retail pricing or seasonal discounts. When the yen strengthens, the opposite happens. The landed cost of an imported boat rises even when nothing about the boat has changed. Manufacturers must choose between absorbing the difference or raising prices to keep margins intact. Most choose the latter, meaning an identical model can swing upward in price within one production cycle purely because of currency pressure. Buyers often assume the increase came from new features or improved components, but the truth may be nothing more than a shift on a currency chart. This is why imported boats sometimes jump in price during global uncertainty. Currency volatility forces factories to update pricing sheets faster than usual, and dealers must follow suit. It is a financial current beneath the surface, shaping costs quietly but decisively. And once currency sets the baseline, production volume determines how the final price behaves on the showroom floor. Output volume. Production volume influences pricing more than most people realize. In the United States, marine manufacturers use high-capacity plants designed to push steady output across the full season. These factories generate large batches of identical models, allowing significant economies of scale. When output is high, the cost per unit drops, and companies can afford to move inventory faster. If stock begins to pile up, the same volume-driven system creates room for discounts because the manufacturer can replenish any unit sold without disrupting the production rhythm. Japanese builders follow a different path. Their facilities often operate at lower volume by design, focusing on precise runs tailored to domestic and export forecasts. This limited output structure means each boat carries a higher share of fixed cost because it is one of fewer units built. Discounts are rare, not because companies refuse to offer them, but because the production system does not create the same overstock conditions found in high-output markets. Scarcity is not a marketing tactic. It is the natural result of a controlled volume manufacturing model. For the buyer, this difference shows up directly in price behavior. American-built boats see wider seasonal fluctuations and showroom incentives tied to inventory cycles. Japanese-built boats tend to remain price stable because the factories never flood the pipeline. One system trades flexibility for volume, while the other trades volume for consistency. And with these four forces combined, the foundations of the price divide are fully in place. Operating cost reality. When you compare the cost of running an American-built engine against a Japanese-built one, the difference shows up long before anything breaks or wears out. It begins at the fuel dock. High-output American motors often deliver strong acceleration and heavy pull, but that power comes with a price measured in gallons per hour. During steady cruising, a large American outboard may burn noticeably more fuel than its Japanese counterpart, and that consumption adds up quickly over a season of use. Every weekend trip becomes a line item on the wallet, and fuel cost becomes the quiet bill that follows the owner everywhere the boat goes. Japanese motors often take a different approach, with power delivery designed to control fuel consumption, especially at mid-range speeds. That restraint translates into lower burn rates, which reduce cost every hour the engine runs. Over the span of a boating year, that variance becomes a financial gap that is hard to ignore. For someone running long distances or frequent trips, the annual difference can reach into meaningful savings or extra spending, depending on which engine sits on the transom. Fuel consumption does not win beauty contests, but it does determine how much money leaves the tank and the pocket throughout the season. And once the baseline fuel burn is understood, the longer-term efficiency math shifts the money picture even more. Efficiency math. Japanese manufacturers often build engines with lean burn systems designed to stretch every gallon across more distance and more operating hours. These systems monitor throttle position, load, and speed to maintain controlled combustion that minimizes waste. The result is not just a lower burn rate at any given moment, but a pattern of reduced consumption built into the engine's behavior. Over multiple seasons, that design approach compounds into real savings because the engine simply requires fewer fill-ups to cover the same routes. Each avoided stop at the fuel dock becomes another quiet win for the wallet. The financial impact grows every year the motor remains in service. Lean burn engines tend to deliver consistent consumption across a wide range of operating conditions, meaning the owner can predict annual fuel spending with greater accuracy. That predictability is valuable because it protects against volatile fuel prices. When gasoline spikes in cost, an efficient engine shields the owner better than one that requires heavy consumption to operate. Across 3, 5, or 7 years, the accumulated savings can reach a level that offsets a portion of the original purchase price. This cumulative effect forms a long-term financial trail that rewards steady operation and disciplined engineering. While the upfront price may or may not differ, the lifetime cost often tells a clearer story. But the financial story does not end with fuel. The market reveals how engines behave when it comes time to sell. Depreciation patterns. Resale value is one of the clearest financial indicators of how an engine performs in the long run, and market data consistently separates American-built motors from Japanese-built ones in surprising ways. Auction sheets show that Japanese engines often maintain stronger resale percentages across comparable age and hour brackets. That pattern reflects buyer confidence in long-term performance and predictable reliability. When potential owners bid on used equipment, they pay more for engines that hold a reputation for lasting without unpredictable maintenance patterns. American engines can still command strong resale in certain segments, especially where power and speed are priorities, but depreciation often runs steeper because those engines face tougher market pressure once warranty periods lapse. Buyers tend to adjust their bids on used units based on perceived long-term cost, and engines known for steady operation attract higher offers. As a result, an engine from a Japanese manufacturer may retain more value at year 3, year 5, and year 7, compared to an American counterpart of similar horsepower. This value retention matters because it shapes the overall cost of ownership. A higher resale price reduces the effective cost of having used the engine across its lifespan. When the day comes to upgrade or change boats, the return on the engine becomes a financial cushion rather than a loss. And even after resale is considered, the engine's support network shapes the real cost of staying on the water. Service footprint math. The footprint of a service network plays a major role in the actual cost of owning any marine engine. When repair centers are widespread and parts are stocked regionally, downtime stays short and repair bills remain predictable. Many American engines benefit from a broad distribution of service shops that can handle routine work and unexpected issues with minimal delay. This layout reduces logistical cost because the owner does not have to ship components long distances or wait extended periods for regional inventories to replenish. Japanese engines, depending on the model and region, sometimes operate within a tighter service network. While their parts are known for precision, availability can fluctuate due to centralized distribution channels or limited stocking at smaller dealerships. When a part must be ordered from a national or international warehouse, the time and cost involved can climb quickly. Even a simple component may require additional days before it reaches the service counter, and that delay translates into higher labor charges or lost use of the boat. These differences affect both the financial and practical side of marine ownership. A wide service network keeps costs steady, while a narrower footprint can raise expenses during peak season when wait times stretch longer. The owner pays not only in dollars, but in missed weekends and postponed trips, adding another layer to the total cost equation. With these engine-related costs combined, the financial realities behind running and owning each type of power plant come into full focus. Emissions compliance. Marine regulations do not appear in glossy brochures, but they drive pricing in ways that few buyers ever see. In the United States, compliance with federal emissions standards imposes a direct financial burden on manufacturers. Engineering teams must design and certify engines that meet Environmental Protection Agency limits for exhaust output, fuel vapor control, and evaporative standards. Achieving compliance requires specialized hardware, testing cycles, and repeated validation runs that consume both time and money. The cost of those engineering steps gets folded into the production budget and eventually appears in the sticker price. Japanese manufacturers face their own regulatory structure, but the requirements differ from those imposed in the United States. Matching both domestic Japanese rules and United States standards adds complexity to engines intended for export. When a manufacturer builds a motor that must comply with multiple regulatory systems, the design process becomes longer and more expensive. That expense does not remain in the factory. It moves directly into the final price of each engine sold overseas. These compliance costs accumulate across the development timeline. Certification fees, emissions testing, and revision cycles create a financial trail that ultimately lands on the owner, even if the regulations themselves remain hidden from view. And once regulations add their cost layer, the manufacturing origin adds another source of financial confusion. Manufacturing origin confusion. The label on a boat or engine often tells only part of the story. Manufacturing origin has become a blended picture as companies distribute production across multiple countries. An American branded engine might be assembled in a factory overseas using components sourced from regions with favorable production costs. Likewise, a Japanese brand may build certain models in the United States to shorten transport routes, stabilize pricing, or access regional incentives. This web of production decisions makes it difficult to identify where a specific engine or boat truly originated. The financial impact reveals itself during repairs. When components come from multiple regions, the availability of replacement parts depends on the supply chain behind each origin. A model assembled in the United States with imported components may require parts that must travel back from the region where those components were originally produced. The reverse can also be true. A Japanese assembled model intended for export may rely on parts manufactured in the United States. Each transfer step introduces potential delay and added logistics cost. This global blending is not a flaw. It is a strategy to stabilize pricing in a competitive market, yet it introduces uncertainty when the time comes to service or repair the equipment. The origin of a boat or engine affects how quickly and affordably parts can be sourced. And when global production mixes with uneven logistics, backlogs begin to shape real repair expenses. If you want the next round of hard numbers the moment they break, make sure you subscribe now. The market is shifting faster than most expect, and these updates can help you stay ahead before the next price correction lands. Supply chain backlogs. Marine parts move through a supply chain that is sensitive to delays at every point. When demand spikes or production slows, even common components can become harder to find. These shortages create backlogs that ripple through repair centers. A part that once sat on a regional shelf may now require a special order from a national warehouse or an international supplier. That shift adds shipping cost, import fees, and extended downtime for the owner waiting on repairs. Backlogs also strain service departments. When shops cannot access the parts they need, labor schedules become unpredictable. Mechanics may diagnose an issue quickly, but be forced to leave the job unfinished for days or weeks while waiting for a shipment. Those delays increase labor hours because boats occupy workspace longer, forcing shops to reorganize schedules and potentially bill additional time. Meanwhile, the owner faces both financial and practical consequences, higher repair costs and lost use of the boat. The inflation effect becomes clear as backlog cycles tighten. When parts are scarce, prices rise due to limited availability or expedited shipping fees. The burden lands firmly on the customer because repair shops must maintain profitability while navigating inconsistent supply chains. And even when parts finally arrive, the warranty system decides who pays for the repair. Warranty exposure. Warranty coverage appears simple on paper, but the structure behind approval decisions contains several layers that shape the owner's real financial risk. Manufacturers design warranties to protect against legitimate production defects, not wear, misuse, or borderline claims. When an issue arises, the service center must document the problem thoroughly, submit evidence to the manufacturer, and wait for an approval decision. That process can determine whether the repair becomes a covered expense or a bill paid directly by the owner. Approval rates vary between manufacturers, influenced by policy interpretation and the data collected during diagnostic checks. If the issue resembles a pattern recorded in previous claims, approval is more likely. If the condition falls outside documented patterns, even by a narrow margin, the manufacturer may deny the claim or request additional investigation. Each additional step adds time and uncertainty, and the repair remains on hold until a final decision arrives. Denied claims introduce immediate cost. When a warranty does not cover the repair, the owner pays for both parts and labor, which can escalate quickly on complex engines. Even partial approvals may leave portions of the bill unpaid. This risk becomes part of the total cost of ownership because warranty interpretation determines the financial outcome of every significant repair. Warranty structure influences not just repair cost, but also confidence in long-term ownership. And together, these invisible costs reveal how much financial pressure sits beneath the surface of modern marine equipment. Auction reality. Wholesale auctions show the truest picture of what American-built boats are actually worth right now. At these events, dealers bid with their own money, not emotion, and those bids reveal how far prices have slipped during the current soft market. Listings from recent United States auctions show late-model American center consoles, bow riders, and deck boats clearing at amounts noticeably below what dealers have been asking on retail lots. The drop is not tied to condition alone. Boats with low hours, clean hulls, and documented service histories are still landing well under their previous seasonal averages. That tells a clear story. Dealers are buying cheaper because inventory pressure is rising. These wholesale adjustments appear long before the public sees any advertised reduction. Dealers react quickly when auctions show repeat declines, and many use those lower acquisition costs to make room for units they can flip faster. When a dealer buys a boat at a reduced auction price, the original retail sticker instantly loses credibility, even if it stays printed on the window for a short time. This is where timing affects the wallet. A buyer who studies auction behavior can anticipate retail adjustments before they appear. The gaps between wholesale and retail always close. They never stay wide for long. And while American boats show these auction-driven dips, Japanese-built models follow a very different pricing pattern. Price stability. Japanese-built boats often hold their price during market softness because the manufacturers control inventory with far tighter discipline. Instead of flooding distributors with excess stock, they limit shipments based on realistic forecasts and historical turnover data. This approach prevents the oversupply conditions that usually force discounting in the first place. When inventory remains balanced, there is no internal pressure on dealers to push prices downward. That stability keeps wholesale values from slipping, even when broader marine demand slows. The result is predictable depreciation rather than sudden drops. Buyers may pay more upfront, but the value of the boat remains steadier as the years pass. Auction sheets reflect this pattern clearly. Japanese-built models rarely show large swings between seasonal cycles. Their pricing curves look smoother because inventory discipline shields them from volatility created by regional slowdowns. This strategy does not promise bargains, but it does offer price consistency. Owners who hold their boats for several seasons often recover a higher percentage of their initial cost because the market has not been distorted by widespread discounting. While the upfront price may feel firm, the long-term math favors predictability. This contrast becomes important when evaluating total ownership cost. Stability at the entry point can become protection at the exit point. But on the American side, some discounts do not come from the market at all. They come from hidden incentive structures. Dealer incentive programs. American dealers often advertise significant discounts, but some reductions come from incentive programs funded by the manufacturers rather than genuine price cuts. These programs offer payments to dealers for selling certain models, clearing older inventory, or meeting quarterly volume goals. Because the incentives are paid behind the scenes, the dealer can drop the advertised price while still earning a margin protected by the manufacturer's kickback. To the customer, the discount appears generous. In reality, it may simply represent a rearranged version of the dealer's financial support. These incentives are not malicious, but they complicate negotiations. A customer may believe the dealer is offering a rare concession when the reduction is already compensated through an internal program. Understanding this structure helps identify when a deal is authentic and when it is engineered. The presence of incentives also explains why some boats on the showroom floor receive steep reductions, while comparable units remain at full price. The difference depends not on demand, but on which models qualify for support. Recognizing incentive-driven pricing protects against overpaying. If a deal appears unusually aggressive, there may be compensation hiding behind the transaction. This awareness allows smarter negotiation because the customer can focus on models without support, where pricing is more transparent. And when incentives mix with auction trends and price stability, the next 30 days form a critical timing window. The 30-day timing window. The marine market moves in cycles, and current indicators point toward a short-term shift that will influence prices over the next 30 days. Auction data continues to show softening on American-built boats, and dealers carrying leftover stock from the previous season are preparing for renewed pressure as floor plan interest expenses build. When interest charges rise, dealers have strong motivation to convert inventory into cash, even if it requires reducing margins. This creates a narrow opportunity window in which retail prices begin adjusting downward to align with auction trends already in motion. During this period, the gap between wholesale and retail pricing usually tightens rapidly. Early in the cycle, only a few units reflect the shift. By the midpoint, more listings start to align with the new reality. Toward the end of the 30-day window, dealers often recalibrate entire categories to prevent carrying costs from erasing their margins. Observing how quickly reductions appear across multiple listings can reveal exactly when the adjustment is taking full effect. Move too early, and you pay yesterday's price. Wait too long, and the best units disappear. The right moment is when multiple dealers adjust similar models together, confirming the correction. With these forces combined, the present market shows a clear path for anyone watching price movements closely. That's the real story behind the shocking gap between American and Japanese boats. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment with what you've seen on the docks or at the dealership. If this helped you spot the truth behind the prices, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next market update.